Hey guys, welcome to Baby Mama's Drama Recovery. It's your host, Chelsea.
And Raven.
And this episode is basically going to be about how it all started.
All the way from her marrying James first, and then me marrying him, and then them get married again, and then things that happened in between, just the whole journey. We could literally make a whole Netflix documentary out of this, but we're going to do it ourselves. So,
yeah.
Welcome.
So I guess we'll start out with how me and James met. So throw it way back to high school. So I was in high school. He was not. He was working, but he's actually dating a girl that I went to high school with. And they ended up breaking up, and I ended up having, me and my first boyfriend ended up breaking up, and then I got with James, and I was with him all through high school. He was my high school sweetheart. And when I was 18, my dad died. He was actually on his way home for my high school graduation. And I think that was the biggest turning point in my life. That's probably the hardest thing that I've ever been through in my whole life. And James got me through that. I mean, he was there for my anger about it. He was there for my sadness about it. He was there to help me through my grief. And he didn't have to do that.
Right.
And he helped me through every bit of it. And understood. He didn't try to make me feel bad for my angry moments or why did this happen? And, I even went through moments where I questioned God, and he helped me through all of that. And, after that, we ended up getting engaged like 2 months after my dad died. And, we got married the end of that year and immediately started trying for a baby. And, we did fertility medicine for about 3 or 4 months, and ultimately was told that I could not get pregnant naturally, and we would have to do IVF treatments because I, even with medication, would not ovulate. And so at that point, we were convinced that we couldn't have a kid unless we saved up all this money to do the IVF. And I think that caused a lot of problems between us. We were both very, very immature still. I mean, we were young. At this point, I'm 19 years old and he's 22. So, I mean, we were very young. We hadn't lived life and experienced, everything. And it caused problems. And then we started fighting because, we didn't agree on some things and we didn't understand why we couldn't have a baby. And ultimately I made some fuck ups, and I'm really the reason that the marriage ended, and I done some things that I should not have done. And I was just young, and I had to learn my mistakes, and I wilded out after we split up. I went wild. And
Yeah, but we have to live those years. Like, you need to get that out of your system before you can truly dedicate your life to somebody, and at least in my opinion.
Right.
Because we all have that instinct in us to do that.
Right. And it's not that the love was not there. We were absolutely stupid in love with each other. Like, the love was 100% there. The passion was there. We just did not have our communication down yet. And I still felt like, I was so young and dumb. Like, I was in the back of my head, I'm like, ooh, what am I missing out on? All these people are out partying. Everybody else my age is doing this. Like, what am I missing out on?
Right.
And obviously now I know I wasn't missing out on shit. But I feel like we needed to separate to
had your lessons to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
And it did. Like, it literally, everything happens for a reason. So
yeah, it was the right person, wrong time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So when you first got married to James, what did you think that y'all's life would look like?
Honestly, I was whole set on the fairy tale of the white picket fence that we would be married, we would have a baby, and live happily ever after. I mean,
Right.
there was never anybody else for me in my head at that point. Like,
Yeah.
it was him, and we were going to be with each other, and that was going to be, my one person, and we were going to have a baby, and everything was going to be perfect. And
So was it
not
the
work that way.
infertility that led to the divorce, or was it the desire for what am I missing out on? Or was it like a combination of both?
I think it was a combination of both.
Like that, I feel like if y'all would have got pregnant, that would have satisfied your hunger for what, like
100%.
what is there out there, or what else is out there for me. But that didn't happen. So you were like,
right. And
you make these decisions in life. There's no ever right or wrong.
Right. And we had that conversation that if we would have gotten pregnant when we wanted to, we would have stayed together and we would still be together, because that would have bonded us together. And like, I felt like in my head at the time, I was not giving him what he wanted.
Yeah.
but I couldn't give it to him. And then I felt also like I didn't want to do that to him. And I'm not taking the easy way out by saying that, but it made me go into, well, if I can't be a mom, why ain't I just out here wilding out, you know?
Yeah, but do you think he might have felt the same way at the time? Like
yeah.
maybe he felt like he couldn't give you what you wanted?
Probably so. And I think that probably caused conflict between us.
Mhm.
And we just handled it the wrong way because
Didn't know how to communicate. Y'all were
right,
young.
we were young
You were
as
what,
fuck.
20 years old? He was
Yeah.
what, 23? He's 3 years older than you. Yeah. So those are trying moments in our life. 20 years old.
Very hard.
I mean, a whole 20s, hell, 30s, beginning of 30s.
We still ain't got it figured out.
Question it. Like, what's going on here? Do we ever even know?
But we did, after we split up, we stayed friends. Like, we were good friends. We stayed in communication. We still messed around, had our little friends with benefits thing. And I'm not saying that was healthy and that's what we should have done, but that's what we did.
And then like, wait, isn't it that one week after y'all's divorce, you found out you were pregnant with Sophie?
1 week after our divorce was final, I found out I was pregnant with Sophie.
So I'm sure that made James feel 100% like it's all him. I can't get pregnant. Like I can't get anybody pregnant.
I was devastated because I'm like, there's no way that I'm pregnant. Like I can't be. I did the blood test and everything. And then I'm like, no, you need to run the HCGs to see how far along I am. This is not possible. And when they did that, I'm like I said, God has a plan. That was not the plan for that to happen. And, James is a great dad to Sophie now. And that's all I can ask for. But, yeah, I mean, there was that question and I freaked out. Like I was losing it.
Yeah.
And then, me and James stayed in touch. We stayed friends and I guess we were not going to leave each other alone because we were neighbors. I mean, we couldn't leave each other alone. He would see me with people. I would see him with people and we would mess it up for the other one.
Oh, I bet. There's no way I could live right next to my freaking ex.
Oh, no. Like, I would see a girl and I would go stand on the porch and, obnoxiously yell stuff. Like,
Chelsea.
I mean, just obnoxious. And, like, when a guy was sitting on my porch, he told me that he didn't like me talking to James. And I told James about it. And James pulls up and comes walking up on my steps and is having a conversation. Like, we did that because we didn't want us to be with other people. We just didn't know how to be together right then. And so that put him moving to Kimber County, moving back to where his dad was. And then that's how y'all ended up.
There was a few years in between because I remember there was another girl that he dated for a while.
Well, that was when he was still.
Oh, so he dated her while he lived right next to you? That's right. Because I went to his house like way before we ever dated. Way before I ever knew I was going to date this man. I went to his house.
Yeah, he actually, we actually ended up messing around after them. So it was
see, that's where it gets messy because he'd be like, Chelsea been done since her. That's where it gets real messy. But that's the past. We're not really worried about all that. No. All right. So what was the hardest part of the divorce between you and James for you?
Probably the fact that I knew that I was still in love with him. It wasn't that the love wasn't there. It was just that I needed to sow my wild oats. I needed to see what else was out there. It was kind of like the grass is not greener on the other side type situation.
But you have to learn that for yourself. And it almost sounds like you were let down in a way before you found out you were pregnant with Sophie, of course. You were let down at the time that y'all split up, that one, you weren't able to have a baby with James like you were desiring. And then you also started getting these feelings that a normal 20-year-old would have of what's on the other side.
Right. And also losing my dad, like that was the most important person in my life, like 100%. Like that'll
do something to a girl. Your daddy,
I was a daddy's girl.
Yes. And that will do something to a woman.
Grounded wire, 100%. Like anytime I was going through something, I talked to my dad because he was my talk me down off the cliff.
And I see how James just kind of came in and filled that. He did. He filled that space, that void that it created. Because I couldn't imagine losing anybody, but much less your father.
Oh yeah.
It just.
And even at 35, that's the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through.
Yeah.
Still, I mean, to this point, because of that connection that we had.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not.
But he's with you.
Oh, 100%.
Always.
And I feel that.
Does he ever show up in like there's like synchronicities or spiritual ways for you?
Oh, 100%. And like a lot of times, like, and I've even had other people tell me, like, I would say something about my dad and I would walk away. My friend Jess can vouch for this, that one time we were talking and I was talking to her and another girl,
Mm.
and I'd explained my dad's scent because he was a truck driver, and I was like, he just had this smell about him. I don't know, like an oil smell.
That
like,
oil smell, yeah, like a mechanic smell.
And I walked away, and she called me not even 5 minutes later and was like, as soon as you walked away, we smelled that smell.
That's wild.
And
See,
I was
love
like,
stuff
oh,
like that.
chills, like gave me the chills.
That kind of stuff really makes me super
I just
excited.
think I was so young, and so much was going on at one time, and I was so much let down. Losing my dad, not being able to have a baby. And of course, those aren't excuses. I mean, I made the choices that I made, and I had to live with them. But I think it was just a lot at one time.
Yeah, you were young. You were 20 years old.
Yeah.
That's like a big thing that I try to preach to people that are, graduating high school, these girls, like, go find yourself before you get married and locked down to somebody. I mean, if you got a high school sweetheart, you've been together 4 or 5 years, of course, embrace that, but go find yourself first, because a lot of times people get married at a very young age and end up realizing there might be something more for me. And it's best to get that out of your system before you settle down. Okay, so, like, speaking on finding yourself, when it comes to mine and James's marriage, I had already done a little bit of wilding out before we got married or got together. And then obviously I did some afterwards too, but I've got my reasons for that, and I'll explain that a little bit later in the podcast. But it's wild to me hearing y'all's story, because I look at our story and there's a lot that's in alignment. You can tell that James just has that same heart, and he wanted, like, I feel like looking back at it, that he's always wanted to just love somebody, and that person was always you, but you were not in the picture anymore. So he tried his best to do that for somebody else. And ultimately it wasn't me, and that's okay with me now. It's always been you. But I was 20 years old when me and James first started talking, and I had been down some very bad roads. At the time, like right before we started talking, I had been dating a guy for a little over a year. And he was just bad news. He was on drugs. He actually had 2 kids himself that we saw maybe 3 times the whole time we were together. And like from probably like 17 to 19 years old for me, I was, really lost on a path of drugs and everything. And like I ended up in rehab for drugs, and I just really lost my way. And it was after my grandmother died. My Nana was the catalyst to my downfall at the age 16, 17 years old. I just didn't know how to cope with that pain of losing my grandmother.
Like I said, losing somebody so young, you don't know how to cope.
You don't. And I didn't know how to handle it. And I definitely coped in some very bad ways. So I ended up on some very dark, dirty roads. And then that led me to that toxic relationship with him. And this guy ended up calling his baby mama and asking her to get back together and everything. She told me about that. And that was the end of us. And then a few weeks later, James started coming around and we started talking. And like a month into me and James talking and dating, I found out I was pregnant. And looking at the lineup of what time I got pregnant, it wasn't his baby. It was my ex's baby that I just got out of a relationship with. But I told James. James was completely open and receptive to it and offered to be there for me and was kind of excited. That's where we had that conversation of, I don't believe that I can have kids. Like he said, I can't have kids, straight up. Not that I don't believe I can't have kids. He was like, I can't have babies.
But I want.
But it was, I can't have babies. And then it was the story of, he told me all story, well, we were trying to get pregnant and she ended up pregnant with somebody else's baby right after we got divorced. So, I felt that from him, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm an empath. I feel those feelings. And then I could tell he just wanted somebody to love, and be there for, and he wants a baby himself. So, and the guy that I was with was not like daddy
and James material. Is such a protector, nurturer. Mm-hmm. You will never see a sensitive side of him. He's not
but it's
there. Yes.
And I think only you and I can probably 100%. Point that out, that, he's not the sensitive, ooey gooey, but he's that, he's you're safe with him. Yeah, you're safe. You're secure. And so he really stepped up for me at that time and wanted to be there for me. Um, and then like 3 or 4 weeks after that, I was probably, I think it was 9 or 10 weeks pregnant. I went to an appointment, and he was texting me telling me, "Oh, I wish I could be there, blah blah, I want to see the baby." And the baby didn't have a heartbeat. So that was my second sonogram at that time. And I'd already seen the heartbeat, and then this time there wasn't one. So that was really devastating for me.
You had got excited.
I had gotten so excited, and I knew that I had secured, this man that was willing to be there for me. And that baby that's not even his. That right there is kind of what locked me in with James. Was this man is willing to love me and my baby. He wanted that life so bad that he was willing to do that.
And we won't touch on this now, but it kind of comes full circle with the situation now with Sophie.
Yes.
Like, he is 100% her dad, and he doesn't have to.
And there's so much butterfly effect in this. I'm going to touch right back on that in just a second. But, okay. But, I told him, I had miscarried and whatnot. And of course I was devastated, and I had to have the baby surgically removed. So on the day of my surgery, he actually took off work, came up to the hospital. He was there for me. And we ended up, that was my lock-in moment,
Right.
And we ended up, booing up. I didn't live with him at this time, but I stayed at his house every night. I mean, I was basically living with him. Yeah. You know how it goes when you're dating somebody.
Right.
And I found out that I was pregnant with our son, Levi, about 6 months later. And at this time, he had started working offshore, and I actually did my best. Like, I wanted to surprise him with it when he got back, but that didn't happen. Like, I came up with this whole thing. Like, I was going to fill his truck with balloons or something. Like, go to New Orleans where his truck was parked and fill it with balloons. So it is, but that's who I am. That's the things that I do. Right. But I didn't do that. I couldn't hold it in.
Right.
And the way I found out I was pregnant is really funny too, because it was actually my best friend at the time thought she was pregnant. And just for shits and giggles, I was like, I'm going to get a pregnancy test with you. I had no reason to think I was pregnant. I hadn't missed my period. Nothing was going on. And I got a pregnancy test with her, one of those Dollar General $1 things. And we took the pregnancy test together, and hers did not come back positive, but mine did. And I was like, what the fuck? Yes. It was just one of those moments of I didn't even think this, So that was pretty interesting. And I can't remember exactly how I told him, but I had to get it out that day. Like, what do I say? And I already knew that I just had that miscarriage and, whatever. But that was our lock-in moment, and then getting pregnant with Levi. So of course, like I said, I was 20 years old when we first got together. By this time I'm 21, and we got married when Levi was 1. And I feel like we kind of got married more so because my family was very much, you've got a kid with him, y'all need to be married. It wasn't a forced marriage or anything. Of course, I wanted it too. I did desire that same life. So of course we had the whole big wedding. We did everything. We did that. And don't you dare.
The wedding dress.
Chelsea clowns on me because she says that my wedding dress just wasn't me. And she says it was just
Victorian, ugly ass dress. And one of the pictures from their wedding is like her holding a shotgun. And I'm like,
yeah, but what she didn't see,
what the fuck?
What she didn't see was that all the girls, me and my bridesmaids, were holding shotguns, and the men were holding our bouquets. And it was some country bullshit that we did, because James is country as fuck.
He is, but when we got married, there were no shotguns in our wedding.
Anyways, yeah, that it wasn't me because I wasn't me.
Right.
Let me just say that my dress wasn't me because I wasn't me, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to that. I tried to be. I was trying to find myself, just like you said. Y'all divorced when you were 20. We got together when I was 20, and I was recovering from a horrible lifestyle.
Right, and you had wilded out, and I think that was the difference.
I did wild out.
He got you when you had wilded out, and he had me before I wilded out.
Right.
So it was like, oh,
he was a grounding wire that I needed in my life at that time. I will say this about our relationship. James and I, James taught me so much about being an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left him, I still have made mistakes. I was 25 years old when I left him. And I made a lot of mistakes since then. We're human. We all make mistakes. But I have taken so much of what he showed me, not taught me through words, but shown me through actions of how to be an adult, how to manage money, how to take care of a household, how to do all these things. And another thing is he worked offshore the whole time we were together. He was home 2 weeks, gone 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks at a time, I was almost forced to learn to do that stuff. So that is something that I take with me from our relationship, along with my son. Other than that, that's it. And I can give that appreciation to him because he taught me all that.
Right.
He didn't even know he was teaching me that, but he did. I was, I was basically like, I was a wild teenager pretty much still when we got together.
Well, and that's funny because that's the same thing with me. I didn't know how to boil water when we got together. He taught me how to cook. He taught me how to do a banking account. I mean,
Me too.
he taught me everything.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do any
James
of
getting the
that.
clout in this episode because he's a good man.
He
He
is a very
is a
good
good
man.
man. He might have had a little tough trial with some, us two mainly.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
we're the two women of his life, but
Yeah.
it's came full circle.
100%. Yes. Right, so since you married James after he had previously been married to me, did you ever feel like you were in any way competing with his past with me or with me in general at all?
The whole time. Yes, absolutely. Like that was one of the biggest factors leading up to my ultimate decision to leave James. Even though I had a kid with him, I could not get past that feeling of my competition that I was in with you. And you didn't even know we were in a
No,
competition.
I had no idea.
But in my mind, I was very young and unhealed. And I had already been in 2 serious relationships. I'm a very serious relationship type of person, even though I do have my but boy tendencies, like, when you're single. I've always wanted that person, that partner, but I don't like to feel second to somebody. And I felt that very emotionally, like deeply, intuitively, that he was still in love with you. And like my past traumas before I came with James was my first love. We dated from the age of 15 to like 17. And he ended up, when we broke up the first time, getting with somebody, they had a baby, and then they broke up, and then we got back together. I was with him for 6 months, and he ended up leaving me for his baby mama. Like we would go for drop offs, and it was like this big ordeal of drop offs where they couldn't get along. I stayed out of it. They couldn't get along. And then the drop offs started turning into he would park like over here and then walk over to her car. And, far away from me where I couldn't see. And then a couple weeks after that trend started, he left me for her. And then my second, the relationship I was in with right before I got with James, we were together for a little over a year, and he's calling his baby mama saying he wants to be with him. So I had this, baby mama trauma, this ex trauma,
Right.
before me and James ever got together. And when I first started hanging out with James, I saw your child's picture on his refrigerator. And I'm thinking to myself, this is your ex-wife. That's not your baby. Why is her child's picture on your refrigerator? That triggered me. It triggered the trauma I'd already had built up from men leaving me for their exes. All of your stuff was still in his freaking closet. Like in my mind, I'm like, this man has already been in a relationship. Weren't they together for like a year or something?
Yeah.
Did she live with him?
Yeah.
Okay, but your stuff was still in the closet. So this is, mind you, after he had done left from Southeast and went to Kemper. And your stuff is still there. And I'm like, wedding albums. I'm like, why am I having to get this woman's stuff out of his house? Y'all been split up for how long at this point? What year did y'all split up?
Sophie was born in 2011. So we actually split up in 2010.
Okay, so this is 2014. Yeah. And it's still there. And I'm like, okay, whatever. Of course I felt some type of way about it, but I didn't want to sound, whatever. So I just, I got everything. I got rid of it. But what that did to me internally and in my mind was it drove me crazy. And I was literally obsessed with you. Like I watched your every move, and it's not any, at the time it was negative feelings. I hated that you were so pretty. I hated that I knew James loved you. I hated that your the pink stripe on the wall in the middle room that was there for your child that's not his. Like, you know, I wanted that for myself, even though I did get it.
Yeah, and you did.
But it didn't, I'm trying to make this make sense. It didn't feel valid. It didn't feel
Everybody
secure.
wants to be with a man who you know that you are number one.
Right. And it did feel like a constant competition with you.
And I will say that, and I want to say so it doesn't make James look bad. It was never that when y'all were together, like me and him had no communication while y'all were married at all.
Right.
Like, so it was never like me and James never ever did.
He didn't do me wrong.
No,
He didn't.
And he never would have.
And no,
that's
he wouldn't.
Very important that I feel like needed to be said.
James did not do me wrong at all. This was more of a decision I made for myself because I was torturing myself.
Right.
All the time. This is something I didn't know how to communicate. I was young. I was, you know, like I didn't know how to communicate to him, hey, I feel this way about your ex-wife, but I had no cold hard evidence to prove the reason that I felt the way that I did.
Right.
Like I did know that, and we talk about this all the time because it's fucking hilarious. Like I did know that the last 4 digits of your phone number was 5150. And so that's on 5150. Somebody called the po would come on and I'd be like, nope,
click.
You ain't listening to that shit. Like that's exactly how I was. I was that toxic, and the toxicity was more of a projection of I didn't know how to express my emotions about you. And it was very real to me. And like I said, I tortured myself about you. I knew everybody you dated.
I had no idea.
No, but I knew everybody that you dated. I knew Sophie's little birthday parties. I knew her birthday date. I knew your birthday date. I knew the day y'all got married. I knew that, you know, I knew all these things.
And you knew my dad's birthday date.
But no, I didn't know that.
How did you find out my dad's
You
birthday
told me
date?
that because when we were talking about Levi being born on the 25th, and I was so mad about that, and you told me, and he was like, yeah, and that was my dad's birthday, or birthday or death day?
No, my dad's birthday.
Birthday. When you told me that recently.
Oh, so you're just mad about it being on the 25th.
Yes.
Because you knew I was born on the 25th and Sophie's born on the 25th. So you didn't even realize at the time that was my dad's actual birthday.
I didn't know that until you told me.
And then it's so funny.
But now I love that I found that out now because I look at it and I say, oh, how special.
Oh, and it is 100% special.
Because back then I raised hell in my head. I didn't let James know that I was raising hell in my own head or that it drove me crazy. But I went on the 23rd to have Levi.
Right.
And I was like,
oh, I was pissed.
I'm going to have this baby on the 23rd, which kind of find out it's my brother's birthday. And then so I was like, I'm going to have this baby on the 23rd. I ain't got nothing to worry about. That little boy put me through hell for 2 days straight and ended up in an emergency C-section because the little thing didn't want to come out. And born on the 25th. I was so mad when I woke up from that C-section. I was like, this is supposed to be my special day. Why does she take everything from me? Like, that's how I saw it in my head. And it hurt. Like, it did hurt my feelings.
Oh, and I know it hurts you, but even with me, like, when I found out about it, like I said, I moved to a whole nother state. Like, when I found out that you were pregnant, I wanted nothing to do with it. And then when I found out that you were born, or he was born on my dad's birthday, I was pissed. Like, I cried. And I don't cry, but I was livid because I'm like, that's my dad's day. Even my niece was born on the February 24th, and I acted a fool, and I was like, my brother was gung-ho, I want her born on daddy's birthday, and I'm like, no, that's my daddy's birthday. He's not sharing that with anybody else. And then when Levi was born on his birthday, oh, I was devastated. And then I remember being like, I hope that baby's ugly.
He ain't.
And then I saw him, and I'm like, damn, he's a beautiful baby. I can't even make fun of him. I can't even say he's an ugly baby. He is gorgeous.
But have you ever heard of the string theory?
The red string?
No, the red, what's the red string? I call it the string theory where everybody's connected.
Yes.
So it brings that up. Like, it makes me think of the string theory because think about how, talking about this now,
right?
Think about how connected our emotions were. The pain that you were feeling is what I was feeling.
Right.
Like, I was feeling that through James, like it's all freaking connected. I remember reading something while we were together that after 7 years, all the cells in your body have now died off and replicated. And I could not wait for that 7-year mark that they had not touched each other. Like, I was just so ready for that.
And then you never made it.
But the whole time that DNA was still there and I was carrying it. No, I didn't make it, but It's just crazy to me to think how that string theory is so real. I felt what you felt. And that day, it's just crazy to me that that day correlated that way. I had no idea that was your dad's birthday
Right.
until you told me recently, but it raped me for my own reasons and my own trauma, and it raped you for yours. And come to find out, it all comes full circle. Ain't that crazy?
It is crazy.
That's wild. I love stuff like that. But yeah, so the competition was there. I'm over that now, obviously, but it took that and then till now, like not just till now, but over years for me to heal. Like I had daddy issues. Which is another big part of me leaving James, validating, a little bit for me in my head that what I'm feeling was real, kind of.
Right. And that we were kind of like
Still not like
destined to be together.
Yes.
Because I really do feel like that. Like it was destiny. It was like the right person, wrong time. 100% destiny.
Yeah. It just kind of, I don't know. Part of the reason I want to do this podcast is because I want people to know my story, your story, our story, because there is so much fate in it. There's so much proof of God has a plan that is already written for you, that God knows what's going to happen, and we might not even see the lessons at the time, but looking back now, it's like
crazy. Yeah.
It's one of those things that make you really think hard about life and what we're doing here. Right. Like, and why things go the way they go, because it literally, it can knock you off your path. Like the emotions that came with Levi being born on the 25th, and that was almost just validation for me, like you said, that it was destiny. Right. And that y'all were meant to be together. Even though I could not tell anybody that, nobody would have understood at the time, nobody. But I felt it and I knew it. But obviously, that did not stop us from, getting married. I tried to push through those emotions. But then,
oh my God, it fell in my drink. Thank
Chelsea,
God.
Lynn, get it off. Oh my God. No.
This one's rounded.
That's fine. That's fine.
Thank God that was on it.
That's fine. It's.
I think it's so thick because it's got that line in there. I'm gonna move it up here.
That's hilarious.
Make a little clip of that
I'm gonna
for
make
TikTok.
a clip of the Chelsea Lynn.
And that's funny because that's my little name of endearment from James.
All right,
we never babied. It was Chelsea Lynn.
I know, and it drove me fucking crazy. I hated that name. Anyways, back to the regular scheduled program.
My bad.
All I saw was it fall in the fucking cup, and I was like, oh my God. This little thing did a great job of protecting it. So if you buy these little microphones, just know that if you drop it in your drink, it's going to be okay.
It will keep this dry.
Yes, it did. Awesome. So, I'm not going to brand this right now, but if you ever wanted to pay us a sponsor,
yes,
here
sponsor.
it is. Here it is. Anyways, I was talking about Levi being on the born of 25th, blah, blah. Right. Nobody would have understood it. So I understood it in my head. I didn't want to admit it. We ended up going on with getting married. We married when Levi was 1 year old. And then in 2018, that March, James left for work, and I texted him and pretty much told him that we were done. He didn't fight or anything, but there is another story in between that.
But so shitty that you did it in a text message.
Very shitty, but it is what it is at this point. He didn't fight. He didn't argue. It was okay. I think we both kind of knew. But there was something that led to that, and it was that my whole life, I had no idea who my biological father was, and my mom didn't know, and she always told me my whole life that my dad's name was Budweiser. And that's because she was 21 years old, and I get it now that I'm adult, done have my wild and out and all that. She was 21 years old, and it was one time thing, and it was actually around her birthday weekend and his birthday weekend, come to find out. And that was history, and then here I come in my mom's life, and so she didn't know who my dad was, and my whole, when I say that I searched for him, like I would recognize men that had brown hair or green eyes or even remotely resembled me, or that I felt a connection to, and I'd ask them if they were my father. Like that was
hard for a child.
It was very hard, and although I have a stepdad and he's been there for me since I was 6 months old, and he is a great stepdad, I never called it. I tried to call him dad one time and it didn't feel right. So I still call him by his
Right.
name. Um, but I wanted to know where I come from. And that made something in me my whole life that made me feel like I didn't know if I could trust that he didn't know who I was or that I was born. I didn't know if he was in Meridian, Mississippi. I didn't know if he knew me. So it always created this question to me of self-worth. Like, why am I
Why
not
didn't he
worth?
want me?
Why didn't he want me?
Right.
Am I not worthy? It really created a very deep wound of self-worth and abandonment. It was an abandonment thing. Like, why would he not want to be? Why would he want me? And so when I turned 25 years old, I asked my mom, I told her I'm going to get one of these ancestry kits and I'm going to try to find my dad. And I said, is there anything you can tell me? And she gave me a name. She said, I think his name could be Tom Chavez. That's all that I know. And I was like, oh, well, it's not Budweiser, like, and so I ran with it. And I got the ancestry kit and I ended up finding one of the surnames on a woman that I have like 3% DNA with the last name spelled not like she said Chavez, but it was spelled differently. And I ended up reaching out to this man on Facebook that I found by Tommy and his last name. And I found my father after 25 years of searching for him. I'm about to cry about it because, like, that was a big deal,
Yeah, it is a big deal.
And so I left my marriage. I didn't know what else to do. I knew that I wanted to know my father. He lived in Georgia, South Carolina, and I had to leave because James wasn't going to go anywhere. I didn't know I was going to cry. Stop. Make me stop.
It's okay.
Make me stop.
What do you want to say to make you
Oh.
stop? What makes you feel any better? I was adopted by my grandparents, so I kind of had that whole my biological dad didn't want me either.
Yeah.
But I feel like we went different ways with it. Like you had that desire to want to know your real dad. I never had that desire to know my real dad, and my real dad actually found me when I
Yeah.
was 21. I was pregnant with Sophie, and he found me because somebody that lived in the town that he lived in knew me and said something about me. And he was like, wait, hold up. And then they started talking and realized, hey, and they asked me, can I give him your number? And I'm like, absolutely, sure. And we met one time. And the first thing he said to me was just very like an obnoxious comment that I won't put out there, but just, I was very like, absolutely not. And after that, I was like, I don't want anything to do with you. Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything happened for a reason. And I had an amazing dad who raised me. No, he was
Right.
not biologically my dad, but nothing anyone could have said, even if I was biologically his, it could not have been any better than the way he treated me.
Right.
So I feel like,
That was your person.
he was 100% my person.
This is string theory again. It's so
Yeah.
fucking weird to me. But
And even people would tell me like, so my brother was biologically, my dad, or biologically, but like they adopted me. And me and my brother are 5 years apart. But everybody thought that everybody would be like, you look so much like your dad. And
yeah.
I'm like, he is, but
You start
biologically
to
he's not my
favor those
dad.
that take care of you though and that you love. You really do.
Right.
Like you will.
And I feel like
Like
I
people
took
think
on,
people have told you that Levi looks like you
oh
sometimes, but
yeah.
if you look like you look at
And then
me,
like
he looks
Bash
just
looks
like
like
me.
James. Like people think
Yes,
that
or that
Bash is
Bash looks
James.
like me.
Yeah.
I'm not even nothing there. I'm like, what the
Right.
hell?
Yeah. Which is weird because Bash, I have looked at pictures and he is a spitting image of my biological father.
Yeah.
Like it's wild. And, I hate that maybe, Bash will never know that side and that connection, but I hate it even more that he'll never know my dad,
Right.
because that love was there. But I feel like I took on a lot of my dad's personality traits. Like
Right.
I think that's why I'm very much calm and I try to be the peacemaker and I try to let
Yeah.
everything roll off my back because I was raised by him.
That's what he did. That's kind of like after like get away from the emotional part. I mean, it's all emotional, but let me not do that again. I couldn't control that. That was weird. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes
Sometimes you can help
energy
it.
comes
Yeah.
up, and but I've talked about it before with you, and it didn't feel that way, but
Yeah.
it did anyways. So my dad and me, like when I found my dad, I realized, like, we are just alike. You would have thought that he raised me.
Right.
You would have thought that, like, and him and my stepmom welcomed me with open arms. They were so excited about me and couldn't wait to meet me. And that healed that inside of me. That
Which is
healed.
super impressive because most women that were married to a man for however long they had been married would have been like, hell no, where did this child come from?
Right,
You
but
know?
she didn't
And
do that.
that
She
shows her true character. Like
no,
that's
she's an
amazing for
amazing
her.
woman. Like, not
Yeah.
only was she open to me, I had two younger brothers, two older brothers, and an older sister from Tommy. And she was wide open to me, but she also dealt with a situation that is identical to what I dealt with my most recent serious relationship,
Yeah.
and stuck by my dad through, he had he was an alcoholic at one point. We have a lot of the same, me and my dad have a lot of the same
Personality
traits.
traits. Yeah.
We are like a lot of the same person. We have a lot of the same humor. We think the same, we have a lot of the same beliefs. But just to go back to my stepmom, she just kind of, she dealt with that, and then she welcomed me with open arms with no question. And when I experienced that, me and James were still together when I found him. And I met him for the first time while me and James were still together. James actually went with me
To
meet them and spend some time with them on a camping trip.
We're recording.
Do you have any eyelashes?
Yes, you'll have to look in one of the drawers in my bathroom. You know what I'm talking about, in that where the clothes are? Yeah. If they're not in the drawers, they're in that thing somewhere. All right. What was I saying? Oh,
About your stepmom. And
so James had actually went with
yeah.
me on one trip up there before I left him. And it was experiencing that part of me for the first time and actually really getting to experience him and the love that I felt. And it was so unconditional. And it was something that I had not experienced from it. I'm not going to say something I hadn't experienced. I'm going to say that it's something that I have been searching for 25 years.
Right.
And I wanted that.
You were grasping
And
for it.
yes,
Yeah.
and I couldn't allow myself not to get that. I wanted it my whole life. And that, plus my infatuation and obsession and competition with you and the knowing of y'all being together was led ultimately to me making the decision to leave James. And I did that. And like I said, my family didn't agree with me. They were pissed at me for a long time. And I get it. And you can ask anybody. I have never spoke ill on James' name. I've always said James was a great guy.
Mm-hmm.
James treated me right. He did everything right, but he was not the one for me. He's for you.
Right.
I knew that. Hence the reason, as soon as I left him, I messaged you and said, I just left James. He needs somebody to talk to. You know, that hurt me, but I did it because there's, I believe in a higher self, and I believe in this, voice that leads you and guides you. And it was always there nudging me, and I didn't know at the time how to navigate that. Now that I've gotten older and, really started to develop my spirituality, I have learned to listen to that voice and to trust it.
Right.
But at the time, I didn't know any of that. I'd never been taught any of it, but I did go with my intuition. I did go with the way that things felt and what felt right. And looking at it now, I made all the right decisions.
But and what was so weird about that is you messaged me as I'm going through issues with my husband.
Right.
Like my second husband. I got remarried, well, we started dating.
That's right. You were married again.
Right.
Like, we were both
so
married.
I had before that,
you were trying to move
I
on
did
just
my
like
single
James
life,
was.
I did
Yeah.
my single life and I had fun and I dated a few people, nothing ever serious in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And then I did start dating a guy seriously and we were together for about a year and he cheated on me and I think that was my thing where I was like, I've got to get it together. Like, this is probably the way I've made other people feel like, what the fuck? Like, this is not okay. Like, I think that was my grow up moment.
Right.
Where I was like, I can't hurt people the way that this feels. Like, this is not
That's
okay. You can't play with people's feelings.
You're projecting your pain.
Right.
And you're wanting them to carry it for you.
Right.
And that's
And
not
that's not
right.
okay.
A lot of people do it, but we're not even conscious of it.
Right. And then with Bash's dad, we were friends, and then he's the one who was, actually opened my eyes to that relationship cheating on me. And that's how we, we had that friendship and we ended up becoming more. There's a fly around me. And we ended up, getting together and very, very quick into us being together. 3 months, I was pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like, we were together. We had Bash. We got married because it was the right thing. It was the next step. And we had conversations that he had a previous child from a previous marriage too. It's like we wanted to do the right thing by our child. We want to do it. We want this child to have this life.
Do the right thing.
Right. And we did. We got married, and very quickly afterwards, things went downhill, and, I'm not going to put all the blame on him or put our business out there. It's just, narrow it down. We were just not meant to be together. And, we
James was
both
single again.
we both made mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to put all the blame on him. We both did make mistakes.
Right.
But whenever I was dealing with all that of me and him separating, you messaged me. I left James.
Right on time.
And I was like, holy shit. And then at that point, I think I was like, I'm dealing with this shit right now.
Yeah, you were. You did respond something like that. I could probably pull the text messages up on Instagram because that's where I messaged you.
Did you? And I was literally
that's
like,
the only access I think I had to.
I'm going through my own shit right now. Like, you're going to regret leaving James. I remember saying that.
You did say that.
You were going to regret leaving him because I do.
But
I remember saying that.
To regret. That was you. I never regretted leaving James because, like I said, I tortured myself with him. He didn't torture me.
Right. But
you didn't torture me. I tortured myself with the knowing and the feeling of being second. That, yes, while this man will love me, I didn't feel that depth. Now, I have felt that with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I know what that feels like. And I know what it's like to yearn for that and want for that. Right. And I also know what it feels to be put second. And like I said, the traumas, they built up. And then, that's another trauma I carried with me, but I did not identify with y'all getting back together as a trauma for me.
Right.
Which was big growth.
Right.
Because.
And I think a lot of people probably look at it and think that, we jumped right into it. I know people probably look at the situation and think, oh my God, she left her husband for him. I think you even thought that.
I did.
And 100%.
I was like, damn, she just left her husband.
And I was not so right. How it happened.
I was so right.
There were a bunch of issues that led up to that. And ultimately, yes, before my divorce was final, I mean, we were separated. Before my divorce was final, me and James were conversating.
Yeah, I heard it from like my family or something. I don't know, talking shit. And I was like, why are y'all calling to tell me this? I don't care. Like, I told them to be together.
Yeah.
I love the full circle, and I really hope that my family sees this and watches this and understands that what I felt was real at the time, because they doubted every decision I've ever made in my life. But I'm going to make decisions for me.
Right.
Because of how it feels.
Right. And I feel like, like I said, I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. And, the way that me and James got back together could have been handled in a different way. We could have had a better timeline on it. I know that. He knows that.
It all happened how it was supposed to, though.
But I feel like everything happens for a reason.
Yes.
And if it would have not have happened then, we wouldn't have Rhett. I mean, and Rhett is
amazing.
And I can't imagine
He's
our life
perfect,
without him. And it was kind of like that was like the full circle moment is, why couldn't we have a baby together when we were together the first time? But then we get back together, and it
was so easy.
It was so easy.
Before we were even divorced.
Before I was divorced.
So it's
it was a very, and that's horrible for me to admit that, yes, I was pregnant by another man while I was still married. Yes. And we were separated. And, me and James waited. I know nobody's going to believe it, but we waited months. Like I swear somebody had told me that 6 months. And then after you were separated, you could be with somebody and it not be considered whatever.
I wasn't worried about it.
And I took that to heart because I'm like, nobody's going to use against me that I was out here having an affair.
Right.
And we waited that time. And then we did physically get together. And literally.
Right then.
I mean, like a month later.
If that doesn't show you how like God has worked in our lives, I mean, just sitting here having this conversation, I can feel it. I can see it. Like I can see the whole thing. And I love having that. I love the healing that is being provided through seeing the situation.
I will say, that situation with my ex-husband was very hard for him. I'm sure he felt the same exact trauma that you felt from
Oh, for
from when you were
sure.
married to James. Like,
He
I'm
probably
sure that
felt
he
the
compared
same
that.
things.
And I
Yeah.
know that when we were together, he probably felt that, because in my head, the way my mind went whenever I moved on was, like, after I got hurt in that relationship and I realized I needed to get my shit together, I was like, I want a family. Like, I want to settle down. I'm ready. James is married to somebody else. So I just have to,
Yeah.
And so that was it. Not that I'm saying that I was settling with him, because
You were
that's
trying to fill a void.
right. And,
We all want to be loved.
and I hate that everything happened the way it did, but everything happened for a reason. And it
All
did
the
affect
way.
our co-parenting relationship for a while. Things were very hard and very toxic for a while,
Yeah.
With me and
Understandably
Bash's
so.
dad.
Look at the circumstances. Like,
Okay.
I can almost guarantee you that he probably felt the same way that I did, married to James, married to you. Because when I tell
Well, I
you
mean,
that it is an undeniable
he
feeling.
did make the comment to me one time, is like, why won't you say anything negative about him? And that's my thing. I was like,
Well, there's not too much.
he's
I'm
a
his
great
ex-wife,
guy. Yeah.
and I'm baby mama ex-wife. I'd have nothing negative to say about him. If I
No.
call him stubborn, that's not me being negative. That's me
No,
being,
he's just
who
stubborn.
he is.
Right.
Like, James is a genuinely
Good
guy.
man.
And I will say, I have always said that I have been very blessed to have such a good baby daddy.
Mhm.
While he's never bothered me. He's always accepted every mistake that I've made since then. He doesn't give me praise, but he also doesn't give me
Shit for it.
bashing. He
Right.
doesn't bash me. So he's always been very accepting and neutral to me moving 7.5 hours away for 2 years.
Which was very hard with the driving and traveling for you too, I'm sure. But I mean,
it was hard as hell.
Right.
But I did it for me. He did not have to allow me to do that, but I think that genuinely in his heart, he also probably knew that I needed that. Like, I am the mother of his child. Like, if I would have had to stay in Meridian and didn't get the opportunity to go meet my dad, I would be a completely different Raven.
Right.
I wouldn't have had that chance to heal. I wouldn't have had that chance to really find myself, because moving there, there's things that we can go into about living there that also triggered things in me that needed to be healed, that I didn't even know needed to be healed.
Like your next relationship.
Open me up to the world, open me up to, like, it did make me, not that I ever regretted leaving James, but it did make me second guess myself after the relation in 2020. So this is two years after I left James that I started second guessing myself. But it wasn't me wanting him back or anything. It just made me second guess myself on the decision to leave. Yeah. Did I make that right decision? But that wasn't because of me missing him or anything like that. It was just because I had such a horrible relationship with the man that I dated after James.
Right.
Which I don't think I started dating him until like a year after I left him. We started dating in 2019. I left James in March of 2018.
Yeah.
So around, like,
because Rhett was born in 2020.
May of 2019, I started dating my South Carolina man. I'm not going to say his name.
Right.
But that right there in itself was a huge reckoning for me. Like, even though I didn't communicate this to you and James at the time, and I put it on social media, like, we're so happy, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the story. Like, that led to a huge reckoning in my life, because he ultimately, like, destroyed me. Like, what I had with James was good, but it wasn't
passionate.
There was no passion.
It wasn't in love.
No. So I didn't get to experience that. What I had with him, I fell in love with him.
Right.
I still to this day will say that I do love that man. When I left him, I broke my own heart.
Yes.
Doing a podcast with kids. We're trying. So I broke my own heart when I had to leave him. But what happened in that year's time, I left him August of 2020, and I had to move 7 hours away from him to get away from him. Y'all didn't know this at the time. Only my best friend at the time, and I still love her to death. She kept Levi for me. She was there for me. She was my neighbor. I'm talking about, I love you to death. He destroyed me. Before him, I had no idea, never even heard of a narcissist. never even knew what that was. And like we had this cycles of, it started about 3 months of us dating. The first 3-4 months of our relationship were fucking golden. I could be myself with this man. I could be silly with this man. I could cut up, and I was full of life and personality, and I've still yet to get back to that woman. I want her back.
Right.
I could feel her starting to come back, but he destroyed her. He cut her down, and she hadn't came back. That version of me that he allowed me to be so freely and openly. And then after 3 or 4 months, he just, I guess, does what a narcissist does. And we've gotten to this cycle of, he would do something to hurt my feelings, knowing it would hurt my feelings,
Right.
disrespect me. And when I would tell him how I felt about it, then I would become needy, or I don't want to be with a depressed ass bitch when you're the one causing my depression, or worthless. That was his favorite thing, is worthless. And at this time, I'm 2 years into my nursing career, working in the burn ICU full time, like, got all my own shit, doing really good for myself. I didn't feel worthless, but after
Right.
being called worthless for a year straight,
By
you
somebody that you
begin to
love.
believe it.
Yeah.
And so he would do that, and then I would tell him to leave. And when I told him to leave, he would get a gun and hold it to his head and threaten suicide. And then, of course, I'm like,
Don't do it.
don't do that. So I'll forgive you. And then he would act right for 2 weeks, and then the cycle would continue
The
again.
toxic pattern.
Yes. And that toxic pattern, I'm telling you, it was a 2-week cycle, lasted for probably 7 or 8 months before it affected me to the point that I was genuinely suicidal. We should probably add like a little suicide prevention thing at the end of this. I don't know what they do,
Well,
but
I mean,
like, I
100%.
did feel that way because I was nothing. My whole personality was ripped away. The only person that really saw what I was going through and can probably vouch for this is my best friend at the time that I was talking about. And there was days where she would come over and make me get off my couch. If I wasn't at work, I was asleep on the couch. That's all I did, was work and sleep. I gotten so depressed. I couldn't even answer phone calls from home because I didn't want somebody to ask me how I was doing, because I don't know what to say. I can't tell you I'm doing good because you're going to hear it in my voice that I'm not. And so I left. I packed up my shit and moved 7.5 hours away to Alabama because I was not ready to come back to Meridian at that time.
Right.
And that I started building myself up from there, because that was like my reckoning. That was my triggering moment. Of course, the whole time, now that I look back, I was doing healing the whole time, but that's what made me consciously start healing, because I realized that I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know my favorite color, my favorite place to eat. I didn't know anything about myself.
Right.
I had completely lost myself in this man and started to believe the things he was telling me.
telling you.
I felt worthless. I felt like I was nothing. And coming back from that is something that it's very hard. I don't like, it's very hard to do, not to give myself like, no, actually, yes, I do give myself a pat on the back for that, because I went from being on the suicide help hotline 3 times to who I am now. And it's 2025, 5 years. And I did that.
And I feel like that's
And
great.
God did that.
That's
God
great to
showed me
touch
how.
on, because I feel like there is a lot of people that, suicide and depression get such a bad rap that people
Right.
don't want to admit that they have depression. And, I feel like that's something that people need to speak up more about. Like, I battle depression. I battle with anxiety. Like,
Yes.
I take my medication for that.
I'm out here raw dogging it.
It doesn't affect me, being a mom. It doesn't affect me being a good person. But like, I have had those moments where, now I don't, obviously, because I am medicated, but I've had those moments to where I just felt completely worthless. And I've just felt like, especially postpartum depression, I got it really bad after I had Bash.
Mm-hmm.
And I just felt like, what's the point? Like,
Yeah.
you could do this without me. If I was not here, everybody would be so much better. And obviously now I know that is 100% not the truth.
Like demonic at nature when I look at it, like now that, I've went through my spirituality and whatnot, it's literally so demonic to have those thoughts.
Right.
And that is what they feed off of, is those lower vibrational feelings of, and they'll lie to you. Like it's energy. It lies to you. Like energy carries information, and that's what you're thinking in your head. And like looking back now, I'm like, holy shit, at the demonic,
Right.
the demons that were controlling him that were now latched onto my life,
Right.
you know, and it's just, I'm glad that I saw myself through that. My one saving grace was Levi. I was laying in my bed and Levi was asleep beside me, and I was sitting there just rubbing his hair and looking at him. And I said, I can't do that. I can't leave him. No, that's my baby.
Well, and that's why, you know,
Like,
that was my saving
he deserves
grace.
me.
Right.
This ain't about me.
Right.
Like, I think that's what opened my mind up to that my life ain't about me now.
Right.
Like, my life's about him.
Kids, it's for them.
It opened that up. Like, I still do things that people are probably, I know I get judged all the time. She's not thinking of her kid, this and that. I'm doing the best I fucking can.
And that's me. Like I've said that, you know, and I still have not recently, but I have my moments, and that's my biggest thing is I would never leave my kids because they deserve to have me as their mom. Like, am I the best mom every day? No, but I love my kids with all my heart. And I will die for all of them.
All of them. Yeah, but I'm not going to be the one that does it.
No.
I'm not going to take me from him. No. That was my big reckoning with that. Like, I might not show it in the ways that society expects me to, or my family expects me to,
Right.
or anybody else, but I promise you that I'm always doing what think that I'm supposed to do.
Right.
I promise you I'm always putting my kid.
It might not be the right thing in other people's eyes, but in your eyes at the
me,
time, it is the right decision.
But I can look back and say, damn, Raven,
that wasn't the right decision.
Why did you do that?
But
then I'm
going
to reflect on it and move on and try and do better next time. And if I make a mistake again, guess what? I'm going to eventually see the pattern and figure it out.
And I feel like that, like with us too, is like when you tell me something, I tell you like, not trying to, you know, I'm like, but this is my opinion. Like, have you looked at it from this way? Like, not trying to say that your opinion's wrong, but look at it from this perspective. Yeah. Like,
and I hear what you say, and I promise, not just you, but anybody that knows me probably can tell you, you can't tell Raven nothing. No, you tell me something, it's always in the back of my head. Is it going to affect the way that I make a decision?
No.
Because I have to learn those things, and I will come back and say, damn, you were right.
Yeah.
You've witnessed that. I will always come back and say, you called it.
Yeah.
You called it. But I guess you said I was stubborn. You know what I'm saying? The first episode, like I am stubborn as hell. But I know I'm that way for a reason, because that's how I've gotten to where I'm at in my healing journey, is by being stubborn and not. If I would have listened to what everybody else told me to do, I would probably still be married to James, not be myself, not on this podcast with you, still driving myself crazy about you, worried, like not worried about me. I was so worried about you, I couldn't focus on me.
Where the hell would I be?
Who knows?
I don't know.
But look where we're at now. You know, like neither one of us have made, okay, headliner.
We learn things.
This woman has 3 kids by 3 baby daddies, is married to her ex-husband, remarried. I am divorced twice at 32 with a kid. I've done moved 3 times, and I've got this whole horrible past that everybody knows about. And y'all keep trying to define me by my past. If you can't see, if it's not evident, I'm no longer that person. But if you look at that and you read that headliner, people would judge the fuck out of it.
Oh, and I know people look and think 3 baby daddies. Oh, she a hoe.
She a hoe. No,
I'm
you're
not.
You're not a hoe. First of all, you've made decisions in your life,
right,
and that had consequences. But look at what that's done for you.
Right.
Just like me, I've made decisions in my life that come with consequences, but I learn and grow and evolve from everything that happens to me.
Right.
I turn every bit of my pain into passion, but I had to learn how to do that. I haven't always been that way.
Right.
I almost said his name. South Carolina man. I can look back and say thank you.
Because you now have learned.
Because I have learned how to overcome it all. I dug into the self-help books. I dug into the dark psychology. I dug into narcissism. I dug into fucking the game of chess.
Yeah.
Like, I dug into it all, and I learned how to overcome it.
Yeah.
I did the work, like, That's what, anyways, we're kind of getting off, veering off.
Veering off topic for a minute.
We're veering off, but I mean, that's
Part of
okay. So let's circle back to this podcast content. How were things, or were things different when you and James reconnected?
Okay, so the love was obviously still there. We got back together and it was like instantaneous. Like we both knew the love was still there, the passion was still there, but we had both grown so much.
Right.
Like we had learned how to communicate with each other. And we sat down and had the conversation like it's not just us anymore. Like there's kids involved. So like if we do this, we have to know that the past is going to be we're healed from that. We've got to touch on what happened in the past and then be done with it, not bring it up again. And we did. And we were both so grown and we were able to have those hard conversations and able to realize, this is what we both want. This is what's healthy. And I feel like, we both grew a lot. And, I learned what I didn't want, and I don't think I knew that before because he was all I ever knew. But after losing him, I learned what I found is not what I wanted. Like he was what I needed.
Right.
And I think we just both learned and grew from that. And now, like, I would not trade anything for the world for our relationship. Like,
I wouldn't trade it either.
like
I couldn't
we
be more
are-
grateful for you and y'all.
and I just feel like we're just, I know it sounds stupid to say, like, not soulmates, but I feel like,
y'all are.
like, I have known him in every single lifetime and I will find him in every single
Chelsea,
lifetime.
it
If
is
that's the
not
thing.
apparent to you, y'all are destined
Yeah.
to be together. And I love that we can sit here and have this conversation and just point out all the things that led back to y'all.
Right.
And then now looking at it, how connected we are,
Right.
on a soul level, because what you were just saying brought up two things in my mind. One, I knew your fucking headliner on Facebook, and what was it? It was like, if you don't know what you want in life, you're going to get a lot of what you
end
don't
up
want.
a lot that you don't.
And I take that. That's another thing I take with me throughout my life since I've left James. And
Right.
that was your headliner on Facebook. That was probably like programmed into my brain because I looked at it all the time,
And in my mind, subconsciously, I probably thought it was a cute quote, but in that mind, I was like, I'm dealing with all these men that I don't want.
you don't want. And
Right.
I knew that you wanted my man, though. You know what I'm saying? Like, I knew it. I felt
Right.
it, but I couldn't be like,
And
you
at the
want.
time, I
If
didn't know that
would
I
have
wanted
said,
it.
oh, you want my man? Like, you would have been like, what the fuck are you talking about? Or,
I already had him.
yeah, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you would have been petty as fuck about it
Right.
because that's who we were. We were young.
Well, that touches on the tattoo thing. Like, to bring up a little petty moment, because we have overcome things,
I
and
love me for this, by the way.
we have both been very, very petty. So when me and James were together, we each got each other's initials tattooed on us. And after we separated, I did briefly date a guy. It was nothing serious, but he was like, "You're getting that covered up," and I'm like, "No, the fuck, I'm not," because I wanted it
Do
to
you still
be.
have them?
No, I
Oh.
covered it up. But I wanted it to be my decision to get it covered up.
Mhm.
Like I wanted, and I felt like at that time I was not planning on covering up. Now, after I had Sophie and she got older, I made the choice to get them covered up, even though it was a huge part of my life because I didn't want her to question it.
Right.
And of course, at that time, I didn't know that
James
James
wasn't
was
coming
going to
back in
come
the
back into
picture.
my
Right.
life. Like
He
he
was
had
with
moved
me.
on, he was with you.
We had a whole life.
And at that point, I was like, I don't want my daughter questioning this.
Right.
So I got it covered up. And then I made a post about it on Facebook and was like, because it was a huge deal for me because I'm like, this man was a huge part of my life. And I was like, this is such a bittersweet moment. And I posted the tattoo
But that
before and the
killed me.
tattoo
Think about
after.
how that made me feel because I knew, like, think about, you didn't know this, but I got all your
Right.
stuff out of his house. You didn't know that I could feel these things, that he's
Right.
still in love with you. So you post this bittersweet moment. I'm like, why is this bittersweet, bitch? Like, why is this bittersweet? Y'all are supposed to be like split up.
Yeah.
Why is it bittersweet? It doesn't make any sense to me, so I clap back. You can
did.
finish that.
James got my initials covered up
with
and
Levi's footprints.
with Levi's footprints. And she put nothing bittersweet about this.
I said, ain't nothing bittersweet about this, because it was just me clapping back, like.
But what's really funny about that is you can still see my initials through that tattoo.
Yeah, you can still see my wedding date.
And you can still see his initials through mine. So, it is what it is.
Yeah, and not when we were together, you couldn't see them. It's probably faded a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it did make me feel better. That's another thing, like, your initials were on my man's shoulder. That drove me fucking insane. It was his shoulder, right?
Yeah, it was this
I'm about to say, like, I'm trying to remember this,
Yeah, it was
like,
the
where it
shoulder.
was. Yeah. That's bad. That's my ex-husband. I can't remember where his tattoos were, but it is what it is.
I don't know any tattoo that's on Dash's tab. One. I know one. And that's because we had it.
Oh.
And I got mine covered up, but he still has it. We got oath together on our wrist. But it was never a conversation that me and him had. And, you know, and I will say that about James. Like, that was a big thing for me because we never had the conversation, oh, you're going to get that tattoo covered up. Like, it was just kind of
Y'all did
like,
it. Yeah.
it was a respect thing for each other. I was never like, you better cover that up. And
I
he
think
was
by that
never,
point,
you
y'all
cover that
were
up.
probably like, y'all's love for each other is real. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's the real fucking deal. So there was no question to it. There
Right.
was no jealousy. There was no insecurity because y'all been here before and y'all know that this is what it's supposed to be.
And I will say that anybody else has been with me other than James I've not been the best version of myself because I've always said, well, this is how I am and you can take it or leave it.
Yeah, but
like,
that's a
I'm
projection of
very
being
much
mad about
a
not having James.
smart ass, and this is how I am, and you can take it or leave it, or I'm not going to do what the fuck you tell me to do. And then there's James, who I'm like 100% want to be respectful to him, 100% don't want to do anything to disrespect him,
because he puts you in that submissive.
and he's like jumping. I'm like, oh hi,
yeah,
you know. And
but he
now
has
some
that
people,
about him.
and some people look at that and probably think, oh, well, you're his little bitch, or da da da
No,
da.
it's
And
not
I'm
like
like,
that.
no, I'm just, that's my man.
Right.
You know?
It's not like that. There was a second thing that, so what was my first thing? Because it's going to bring me back to the point of the second thing. Like, they were the same thing. What did you say? This is my ADHD working right now. What was my point? I said,
You asked me, do you believe everything happened for a reason?
no, it had nothing to do with that. It's something you
What's the moment
said.
you knew was going to come?
Oh, it was that my second thing was what you were just saying is almost identical to where I'm at now in a situation
Right.
with the man that I love. But I need to remember what you said so I can harp on that point.
Right.
I don't know.
And
You had said something. Okay, now that we figured out where we were, because squirrel. Squirrel. You were talking about like how the second time you and James got back together, how it's the kids. You've got kids involved now, and you know
Like, this
that
is
you
not a
figured
game.
out what you don't want.
Right.
And I feel like that's another like direct correlation to where I'm at in my life now,
Right.
years later from what you and James went through it. But I'm there now with my current situation, you know, and kids are involved. And there is a huge situation that's involved that directly has nothing to do with me. That I'm not trying to call victim here, but I did nothing wrong
Right.
in this situation other than try to set a boundary with somebody.
Which, and that's my thing, is like with kids involved, like they're innocent kids. Like,
They are, but I realize that.
Right.
And you realize that I realize
and
that.
that's my biggest thing, is like, when it comes to the kids, not just our kids, not just my kids,
Anybody's.
but anybody's fucking kids.
Yes.
I do not play when it comes to kids. Like,
No.
do not put anything that is an adult problem on a kid's shoulders. Like,
And I'm the same way.
if
but
you
I've
tell
been
a
made out to
child,
be as if I do that.
and this is my biggest pet peeve, and this has happened in the past with things that I've seen. It's just, I think it's part of co-parenting. It probably happens in a lot of co-parenting relationships, but where a parent is one of my biggest pet peeves. They tell a child something, or they talk bad about the other person, but they're like,
Yeah.
or don't tell the other parent. If you are teaching your child to lie, that is the most toxic thing that you can do for your children.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, and if you're talking about other people's kids, like making accusations about other people's children, like, that's not okay. Like,
No.
you're going to get the wrong one, because you make accusations about any of my kids. Like, it's not a threat. I'm not going to threaten anybody, but
I'm gonna let you know.
and if it happens again,
so why are you acting like a bloody fool?
That's that.
Then you must get cool.
and
You
I'm
don't-
a
and
very
that should be
calm
for
person,
Anybody, that should be for anybody though.
but that's anybody.
That goes for anybody. Like, you don't.
Like, I will go to
talk
war for
about
my children.
Children,
Right. Talk about me
Hey.
all you want. I give you plenty to talk about.
baby. Her kids are my kids. My kids are literally
Yes,
her
literally,
kids. You
yes.
know, like legally.
Like
Legally
there's
your
no
child.
difference.
Hold
Like
on.
he is my child.
He is legally your child,
Right.
Chelsea. My child.
Well, that's what I tell people. Like, when have you seen this little mom thing going on TikTok where it's like a mom follow party, and then they're like, "Say how many kids you have," and I'll be like, "Mom of 4."
Right.
And I'm like, because I have 4
But
kids.
what
Like,
I
and
can
some people
respect
look
is
at
the
it and
fact that you are legally my son,
right,
my biological son that I created.
right,
You are legally his stepmother.
stepmother. Mm-hmm.
And I respect that,
Right.
is my point. And back to the correlation thing, it correlates with what you were going through, where y'all had that serious conversation. Kids are involved,
Right.
but y'all love each other.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm there, and I feel like I'm just, where's my opportunity? I was never given the opportunity to show that I'm not this person that has been portrayed to be everything that this podcast is representing me as, because this is who I am and it's who I've been all along. It's been portrayed that I'm the opposite, you know?
Right.
And I'm,
But you feel like that people are going off of what they are making up in their head. They haven't really gotten to know you. They're going off of something completely.
right.
Whether they've made it up or they've just heard something from somewhere else. It's
No, I
like,
think people are just so unhealed these days that they want to project their feelings onto somebody else and make them be the bearer of their own shit that they can't look in the mirror and take accountability for.
which, and then here's my biggest thing. And like, we kind of touched on this in the last episode that we did, that like, if you leave this person, you know, whoever they're with after you is none of your business. So like, I feel like I've always been a great bio mom. Like, I have never made any other woman that come into the picture for my children feel bad, because the way I look at it, like with Bash's dad, like, I know that Bash, he loves Bash. I know that he's not going to let anything happen to Bash.
Right.
So I trust his judgment. If he brings a woman in the picture, okay. Are we going to always have the same views on things? No. Are we always going to get along about everything? No. But all that matters to me is that my son is loved,
Yep.
and that my son is taken care of. I know that Bash's dad is not going to, you know, bring this horrible person in, because I know that he's going to make the best decisions for our child. And that's
Right.
what people need to realize. If you lay down and have a child with this person, and you truly believe that this person was enough to have a child with at the time,
and then you have 2 kids or more,
right,
then you obviously
thought that they were a good person.
okay.
Right. You can't
Just because somebody else
change
comes in
that.
their life doesn't mean that you get to change that narrative.
Right. You can't.
And you can't base somebody's past off of who they are today, because if it's not evidence just in this podcast alone, this episode alone, for one, am not the same person that I was yesterday, especially the same person that I was. How old? I'm 32. So how old was I? Or how many years ago was 17?
Oh my God, I don't know. I'm not good at math.
That's almost
Call James.
That's 16 years ago. No, 15 years ago. 15 years ago.
Right.
If you try to define somebody off who they were when they were 15 years ago, baby, you're still stuck in 2011.
Well, that's like I tell somebody, if you knew me in
2010.
if
Look
you
at my
knew
math
me,
not mathing. 2010.
if you knew me in my 20s, no the fuck you don't.
That's my
Yeah.
thing. Like, the difference between us and majority of, I'm not going to say majority, but a lot of people, is that we are forever evolving and growing and learning. And that is what I seek to do. And that
Some
is
people
who
are
I
just
am.
so
So I
stuck in
may
the
come
past.
off as strange to some people. I may come off as a different person all the time, but that's because I am genuinely me. I'm a human. I have feelings. I have thoughts.
And just because you have different beliefs don't mean that you can't get along. Like, me and you have things that we don't believe the same in. Like, I'll be
Right.
like, come on now, Raven, that's a little far-fetched.
Yeah, well, I'll stay out there.
But
I am.
also, you know, there's probably things that I do and you're like, come on now, Chelsea. Like,
Not
speak
really.
up a little bit.
No, yeah, there is. There's things that
Right.
you're too quiet on,
Right.
that you don't speak up on, and boundaries that you should set. And I'm like,
Right. Yes.
let's set those boundaries. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But that's it. But we're still like, I give her my opinion and she takes it and does
Right.
what she wants with it. And same for me, because we're
Grown. Mhm.
period.
All right. So let's talk about the damn butterfly effect. You mentioned it earlier, and I mean, everything, the heartbreak, the marriages, the divorce, it all brought us here.
All of it. And I truly believe that it was all in divine timing. There's nothing that I can look back on that I can't say didn't happen for a reason.
Right.
And I'm going to go off on one really short tangent on this one, but just like when I first got back with, or not back with, when I first gotten with my most recent serious partner, I told him within 3 months of us dating, I said, God put me in your life for a reason. And I knew that because I had already withstood the shit that I dealt with my South Carolina man, and then going through COVID as a nurse and my own beliefs in that, and like, you know, losing it all. I'd already been through it. And I told him that. I told him, you know, I'm here for you for a reason. I'm here to teach you and open your eyes to things that, you know, you might not have saw before.
Right.
But that was God working in my life. Of course, I got taken away from me. And, you know, of course, you know where I'm at with that right now. But it's all divine timing. Every single bit of it. There's no doubt in my mind that God is real and that God has already written these scripts for us. And then we've got to learn to trust the process, because that's one of the biggest healing factors that I've gotten
hard
here.
to trust the process. It is.
Trusting the process.
Because when you're in it, it's like,
what's going on? I mean, look at me at the beginning of the year.
Right.
I lost my job, lost my husband, and had 2 surgeries back to back, and could not work, could not pay my bills, nothing. And I depended on God, but look at where I'm at now. He showed up and showed out because I trusted the process. God showed me, hey, I'm testing you right now. And I knew it. I knew the test because I've been through it so many times before. I finally opened my eyes and said, this is another test. Everything's being uprooted in my life. It's a test.
Absolutely. And that's like God said, you're going to go through it, but then you're going to teach from it.
Yeah. And that's what we're doing here.
Right.
So I've been through, I think I'm finally at that point. I've been wanting to do this podcast since 2021. Not this podcast, but a podcast. I bought the equipment over time. How do you think I started it up so fast?
Right.
Because I've been planning this, but I didn't know it was going to be like this. I believe that it's, you know, let's wrap it all up. That's what I moved back to Meridian for. I always said I would never come back, and look what it did.
Right.
You know, so, I mean, y'all, if your faith been, you know, been tested lately, know it's for a reason, because once you start leaning into that faith, them blessings are coming.
Right.
Them blessings are coming. Open your eyes, like for real. Open your eyes, open your heart to see where God's working in your life, because it looks like he ain't working there because it's all destruction and lower vibrational things. If there's something lower vibrational there, that's because God wants to point it out so that he can bring it up. And that's on period. Clock it.
Right. So, if you're listening and your life looks like a chaotic ass mess, don't give up on the plot. The middle might be messy, but the ending can still be magic.
Anyways, like the song says, may the bridges I burn. May the
bitches I burn.
Okay. So like the song says, may the bridges I burn light the way. We're here to say that it doesn't matter what happens in your life. It doesn't matter how crazy it is. You can always turn it into something beautiful. It may be chaotic for a while. It might take you years to heal from something, but when you finally decide that you want to heal from it, it's possible. It can be done. You can turn those ashes into a diamond real fast.
So we're going to wrap it up for today. We got kids we got to go take care of. I'm surprised this podcast was even able to happen.
Okay.
With them running around, you'll probably hear them playing and everything in the background.
Busting up in here.
Busting up in the door. Yeah, so if you enjoy our content, join us next week. We'll have a new episode every single Monday.
We can't wait. Like I see what you mean. It definitely splashed up on me that time. We're so excited to be bringing y'all this. We really are. I already, in my own way, had healing done that I didn't even know needed to come out of me today.
Right.
You know, it's crazy how that works. I talk all this talk, and then I'm sitting here and I'm like, woo. But it's not me talking talk. It's just, you know, sometimes you will feel it when it's ready. But
So y'all, it is currently 5:40 in the morning. I shouldn't be screaming, but it's okay because James wakes up in like an hour, so it's okay. Just getting him prepared. So basically, I have not gotten any sleep. I just got done editing the podcast video, and yeah, I'm gonna try to go to sleep. So y'all should like, comment, share, you know, comment. I don't know if I already said that, but y'all should do all that. All my footages. So yeah, and I'm gonna try to get some sleep. So follow us on the TikTok right here, and yeah, and we post a video every Monday. So okay, so watch every one. Okay, so see y'all. Love y'all.